Hey everybody, this is Lynn with Kansas Troubles Quilters. I'm here today to talk about Peppermint and Spearmint Twist for our Vintage Christmas Quilt Along. This is week 8, block 8 in your booklet on page 14. So this block is basically rectangles and connecting corners. We've talked about connecting corners before with this uh, quilt, but I wanted to go over it a little bit today. Again, when you are adding your little D squares, draw your line diagonally, stitch on the line, uh, and then we're going to press those seams open. So this should still be 3.5 by 4.5 after you have added the corners. And there's an easy way to test if your seam and your pressing is accurate by putting all 4 corners on one of these and then laying a cut background piece that has no corners on it, match them up and see if all the corners come out exactly perfectly. And then you'll know if you're stitching right on the line works, or if you need to stitch right next to that line, closer to the corner, to give yourself just a little bit of breathing room when you're pressing your seams open. So try that if you're having trouble with having kind of these little dog-eared, curved corners instead of really nice square 90-degree corners. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2, when you're adding a square, like in a flying geese or a star point unit like this one, if you fold that up to the corner, it should be perfectly 90-degree angle, and then you can trim and press your seam open, like so. I always start when I'm stitching on a connecting corner, I start where I call it the critical point. This is your critical point in the center, because when the 2 squares overlap, that's going to give you your 1/4 inch seam for when you stitch that on so you don't chop off that little point. So this is your critical point. We're going to start here to stitch toward the corner, and the other one will start and stitch toward the corner as well. We're going to trim the seams and then press the same way. We're going to start in the center of the rectangle instead of on the corner. I feel like this just really helps keep your background rectangle more square and straight, and it doesn't get skewed. And I've also found when I start stitching from the corner and go this direction, sometimes that little corner gets pulled down into the throat plate. So if you're having issues with that, I think for accuracy's sake and for stabilization's sake, start in the center and stitch toward the corner. So there are 2 of these little units for every one of your candies. These are the twists on the ends, the paper that's twisted over your peppermint. One of the things you need to remember is when you're sewing these together, it does not go like this. It goes like this. Ask me how I know. So, pretty simple block this week. We are merely adding connecting corners to virtually everything and sewing them together. Now this block, where you have a lot of things coming together in this seam, we have the point from our wrapper twist, and we have the connecting corners here. I still felt like pressing it toward the body of the candy was the best way to go, but I also sprayed again with my Terrio Magic and used my clapper to flatten that out, and it really helped. Now when I'm doing so many connecting corners together, I started with the center squares, sewed on a corner, cut them apart, sewed on another corner, and then I would do the on one side on the twist part, cut them apart, and go back and uh, sew in a row all the other corners on after I've pressed. The way that I cut my chain piecing is this with this little round cutter blade. It's got all these little grooves in it. So when you sit this on your ironing board or cutting table or wherever, you can just take your pieces and slice the little piece of thread that's in between your units right on there. If you're interested in one of these, I'm trying to get all this on our website. I collect these antique spools, and I will have some offered for sale if you're interested soon. I promise, soon. So somebody had asked a question about the best way to cut their fat quarters to utilize them the best. So this one is a really good example. We have 3.5 by 4.5 inch blocks, and we also have 2 by 3.5. So find your common denominator, which is the 3.5 inch measurement, and cut a strip that's 3.5. Then you can cut 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, and then cut your 2 by 3.5. And that way you don't have as much waste. I cut the width of the fabric if my measurements add up to more than the 20 inches of the width of the fat quarter. And after that, if I only need 1 or 2 more, I'll cut the shorter length instead of another whole width of fabric. And I just really feel like I'm saving fabric that way. I don't know that I really am. In some cases, totally you are. So think about it before you start cutting. Again, the fat quarter bundle allows plenty of fabric for the quilt. There's a few of them that may come up if you cut randomly, just cut too many strips, you may end up a little short. You can always sew those puppies back together. So I think that's what we were talking about, what somebody was asking about as far as the cutting goes. I am going to get a YouTube channel and start posting all of these blocks, but my understanding is if you save them to your computer, you can access them at any time. So I am going to save them as well, and over the next few days, I'm going to repost all of the earlier blocks so that everybody can save those to work at their own pace. So thanks for joining me today for Peppermint and Spearmint Twist, and I will see you next week, and we will talk about log cabins. Bye. Have a great weekend.